Thank you, Marie. Thanks, John. I think that was a very succinct kind of layout of the state of play, of the state of design so far. So let's turn to our three commentators. We have with us today Jeff Wage from the Leverhulme Centre for Integrative Research on Agriculture and Health at the UK London International Development Centre, sitting right there in the centre. We have Robert Boss, the Coordinator for Water, Sanitation, Hygiene and Health at WHO. And we have sitting next to me Tom Arnold, the CEO of Concern Worldwide. As you notice, the organizers of the session have done the academic, the intergovernmental, and the NGO perspectives. I'm not so sure that they will be that different, but at least we've tried to cover the bases. So let me turn to Jeff first, and then we'll just move down the line.
Thanks, Emmy. I'd just like to kick off by saying that this presents itself as a very exciting project, not simply because of the content, but because of the context in which it sits, which is the new strategic framework for the CGIAR, because it involves a collaboration between many centers, and it involves a very distinct impact pathway, which I think is novel and exciting. That is, it engages researchers in the CG and their research partners in the generation of research outputs. And then it engages other partners, and it's clear from this proposal where they come from, the government and civil society, in turning those outputs into outcomes by demonstration of their viability and their uptake. And then it engages yet other partners, development partners, in the scaling up. And I think that's a very important structure, and one which is central to delivery of, indeed, any agriculture research for development, but very important to this particular project. And I guess academics sit largely in that first section, those who are research partners in generating outputs. And I've been asked to give an academic perspective on this. I had the opportunity to participate in a workshop that organized some of this proposal in Addis last year. And there were two kinds of academic institutions present. On the one hand, there were departments of agriculture, departments of nutrition, who'd come with their disciplinary perspective interested to participate and be part of this. There was a smaller group of groups that had actually got together and begun to do interdisciplinary agriculture and health activities. For instance, from Cornell University, from Columbia, our University of London initiative. And I think that mix was very interesting and very important, because I perceive that in the development of this proposal, there'll be a number of roles which academia can play. On the one hand, all academic researchers, particularly in agriculture and nutrition and health departments, have a great deal to contribute in the context of providing that evidence base, which I think this whole meeting will reaffirm is so lacking in terms of the impact and the potential impact of agriculture and health and the interventions that can be used. There's a real academic role in providing that. There's also an academic opportunity to work interdisciplinarily, and it's nice to see that a few institutions are beginning to do that. They're mostly northern. That needs to change, and there are probably many more that we'll learn about at this meeting. Because that kind of academic interdisciplinary work provides two important contributions. One, I think it will focus very much on the development of the necessary tools and methodologies that will allow an agriculture and health approach. And secondly, it will begin to help frame the big picture around the dialogue that needs to occur between policymakers in agriculture and health, which is one of the most substantial ambitions of this new CRP. So I think those are both going to be important. Then just turning for a moment to the opportunities and challenges facing this program, I perceive there are certainly similar challenges to the ones that we faced in our smaller academic interdisciplinary activities, and which I think we all face in these 2 days. There are important links between agriculture and health. They exist, there's evidence for them, they're well captured in these 5 programs. They're strong enough to make a good start, but they are very patchy. And I think that patchiness reflects the fact that certain themes within the agriculture community have found homes in certain themes within the health community, and have got a good start, but there are lots of spaces in between. For instance, the agriculture and nutrition link is strong, and in this and other development agendas is driven very much by Millennium Development Goal targets and the need to reduce hunger. But the link there between agriculture, nutrition, and health, in the sense of the impact of agriculture on chronic diseases and cancers, is not that strong yet. And yet we know this will grow in importance with the dietary transition, particularly in urban areas around the world. Another example, the infectious diseases create a strong link between agriculture and health. On the animal side, with the health community, and particularly because of zoonotic diseases and foodborne diseases. But the agriculture, nutrition, and health link still needs a bit of development in the context of how animal production and production of other crops actually affect health issues with respect to both the health effects of eating animal products and also the health effects of the environmental consequences of allocating agriculture between animal and plant production. So those are some gaps, and admittedly those are gaps which are possibly of more concern to the north than the south at the moment. But I close with the observation that this is perhaps one area where an academic partnership can make a particular contribution. That is, there is at present lacking a big organizational concept. We've got a number of strong areas that are beginning to develop, but how agriculture and health fits together in the broad sense has not been created, and that's something academics love to do, and I think that's a particular area where they can make a contribution, looking at those gaps, providing a challenge function to these 5 programs, saying, yes, but what about? And thereby assisting the evolution and success of this CRP. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Some good questions there, and I think some good challenges for the team to take on board. With that, let me turn to you, Robert.
Thanks very much. I should first of all say that from the perspective of the World Health Organization, we greatly welcome this initiative. And there is a long but little known history of working between WHO and a number of CGIAR institutions that I've been very much closely involved in, starting with work with the International Rice Research Institute in the 1980s on irrigated rice production and vector-borne diseases. Similar work with the International Water Management Institute. We had a big project with Varda in West Africa on malaria and schistosomiasis and rice. But also on other issues, and having visited various institutes, I know that there's always been one way or the other research going on that was health relevant, whether it was on pesticides and their health impact or mechanization or whatever. So the whole gamut of health has somehow been touched, and I think the value of this particular proposal and project is that it will pull things together, try to integrate nutrition and health issues and their links to agriculture, and then bring that either to this contextual community basis where you have a setup where you can actually do things, where sectoral boundaries disappear and where agriculture and health workers at the community level can work together, but also at the policy level, which is probably the most important thing, because as you look at the objective of this proposal, the whole idea is that through the increased evidence base, we actually will enhance agricultural policies so that they take health and nutrition issues better into account and allow for improvements in that way. And I think that is where in our previous work with the individual centers we often failed. We were very good at doing some of the local operational research, but it was a challenge to then get that to the level where policymakers, and particularly agricultural policymakers, would hear about it and take action on it. Very often involving health researchers in agricultural work means that in the end they want to publish their results in medical journals, and then they never actually reach the target audience that we originally had in mind when we designed the whole thing. So I think that from that perspective we welcome it, and we also we're already involved in the IFPRI Agriculture Health Research Platform, which did a lot of the groundwork for setting up this framework for the proposal. We feel that it really will be a challenge for the project to actually set up the institutional framework within which this can all operate. Jeff next to me already referred to the fact that of course it's great that it opens a way to get several CG centers involved in specific areas of research in this area. But we also will have to make an effort to get the various health research institutions involved. And of course, in the past, there's often been a complaint on the health research side. Why don't we have a similar structure like the CGIAR with these wonderful centers, etc.? But the health sector operates differently, and we've always had a more, let's say, low-key approach to things. And of course, the only equivalent that one can think of is the Tropical Disease Research Program, which is a World Bank, UNDP, WHO, and now also UNICEF enterprise since the mid-1970s, which was very much a decentralized way of doing research, but which in its time also has done work in this direction, not with CG centers, but they have worked on looking at environmental determinants and looking at agroecosystems and how they influence tropical diseases. So there's a bit of history there as well. Anyway, building on that, we should see how we can get health research centers involved into this project. I think also economics needs to be made very visible. We now have, Marie mentioned the DALI, the Disability Adjusted Life Year. So we do have an effectiveness indicator for health interventions, which is strongly linked to economics. And economics is still the sort of common language we can all claim we speak, whether we're in the agriculture, nutrition, or health sector, if we want to understand each other. I think that other than the strength of taking this up to the policy level with a clear focus, I think there's also a lot of interest from the fact that there's the concept of value chain that has developed so rapidly in the agriculture side of the last couple of years. And that very much coincides with how in the health sector we think about risk assessment and management, no longer strict and rigid norms set globally by the WHO, but a much more flexible and adaptive management type of approach of interventions, again along a chain of events that will then eventually provide the health benefits that we're looking for. So I think that is another very strong point, and I think I would like to leave it at that and pass over to my colleague next to me.
Thanks a lot, Robert. So with that, Tom, you have the challenge of giving the last word here.
Thanks, Emmy. I've been asked to discuss this from the perspective of a large NGO, but as Emmy said at the beginning, the perspectives may not be, in fact, greatly different. I suppose I'd start with the general point that this set of issues and the integration between agriculture, health and nutrition is an issue whose time has come. Even the interest in this conference is a demonstration of that. But there's another recognition of that, in that, as Emmy said, the CG system is under a process of reform at the moment, and this consortium research program is one of the programs that's being proposed as to be funded going forward. But in a sense, as an overarching statement about what the CG is about, has been developed something called the Strategy and Results Framework, which the consortium board will be considering at its meeting next week in Hyderabad. And this is something that, in fact, Jeff has been working on. But one of the four, they're proposing in that 4 what they call system outcomes. And one of those 4 system outcomes is improving nutrition and health. So that's a very formal, I think, recognition that this issue for the global research community and for the wider project of dealing with hunger is very, very central. The other thing that needs to be remarked upon is that there is such patchy evidence on this issue, particularly on the issue of how agricultural projects have connected with nutritional benefit. I've already heard today the very limited number of pieces of work that has been done on that, and I understand Per Pinstrup Andersen has done some work. Has he disappeared? Oh, okay. But I mean, and I also understand that DFID are funding a piece of work which is going to try and just look at the evidence base that currently exists. But the point is that I think that by general consent there is a lack of evidence in this to make this, and there's probably a further lack of evidence when you begin to link the three sectors together: agriculture, health, and nutrition. Where does an NGO like Concern come in? Maybe I can best exemplify this by referring to a project that is included, if you like, as part of this proposal, as an example of a partnership between a research organisation, civil society organisation, and government. And it's a programme called Realigning Agriculture to Improve Nutrition. And it's going to involve a project in Zambia to be implemented over the next few years. Now, the key focus of this project is on the issue of chronic malnutrition and how interventions, agricultural, health, and nutrition, can link together to have an impact on stunting. So that's a very, if you like, practical and significant issue, because as probably everybody in this room knows, the issue of stunting is of enormous economic, social, human importance. 195 million children in the world suffer from stunting. In Zambia, where we will be doing this project, there's about 1 million children suffer from stunting, and the area that we will be working, the district we'll be working in, about 50% of children suffer from stunting. So in practical terms then, what this program is attempting to do is look at the empowerment of women, look at supporting small farms to diversify cropping systems, particularly homestead production systems, have strong monitoring and evaluation processes built into this program from the beginning, and then look at the coordination between different sectors, because the program will be implemented by Concern in partnership with local NGOs, the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, and the Ministry of Health. So I think it's addressing a very significant issue. It's looking at the issue of process. This is not just an issue of science, it's an issue of process, how things actually work together, and what evidence can be adduced over a period of time with proper monitoring to see, you know, how systems work and how they can be effective. As far as another dimension of, if you like, and concluding remarks is, I mean, clearly the emphasis on results for money spent for aid programs in the future is going to become ever more important, and I think that's part of it. And from an NGO's point of view, the benefit of working with IFPRI in terms of program design and in terms of high quality monitoring and monitoring and evaluation systems which are put in place, that's going to be a critical benefit as well, because I think NGOs are, if you like, as a general rule, going to have to raise their standards in these areas, and I think this is a particularly good example of how it could be done.
Thank you, Tom. I think that, in fact,